Good morning, my dear juniors. I hope you all are fine with the blessings of God and myself, Priyanka Sarkar. Today in this video, I will be discussing the short notes of chemical coordination and integration, where I have converted the NCERT all lines in only 4 pages. 1, 2, 3 and 4. Only 4 pages. So I will discuss it. First is human endocrine system. Chemical coordination and integration, human endocrine system. So where we have parathyroid, thymus, and then adrenal gland, pancreas, thyroid, pineal and pituitary glands, as well as gonads, testes and ovary. So additional organ releasing hormones are heart, kidney, liver, gastrointestinal tract. So additional hormone release organ which releases hormones. The additional organs which releases hormones are heart, kidney, liver, gastrointestinal tract. Now we will discuss about hypothalamus. It is a basal part of the diencephalon, and that is the forebrain. It contains nuclei that produces hormones. Hypothalamic hormone GnRH जिनको हम बोलते हैं, it stimulates the pituitary synthesis and which releases the gonadotropin hormone. So mitostatin in the hypothalamus inhibit the release of the growth hormone. And again, we have pineal gland, which is present at the dorsal side of the forebrain, which releases melatonin. And what is the function of this melatonin? That it controls the sleep-wake cycle of the body and also the body temperature. It also helps in metabolism, pigmentation, menstrual cycle, and defense capability. Thyroid glands, 2 lobes either side of the trachea. So it has 2 lobes on either side of the trachea. It has 2 lobes on either side of the trachea, where it is connected by a thin connective tissue. It is connected by a thin connective tissue, isthmus. And that 2 tissue is follicles and second one is stromal tissue. First one is follicles, second one is stromal tissue. The follicular cell will produce T3, T4, thyroid hormone. Its function, what is the function of the thyroid hormone? Its function is it regulates the basal metabolic rate of the body, red blood cell formation, controls the metabolism of the carbohydrate, protein, fats. It influences the water electrolyte balances. The first function is regulations of the basal metabolic rate. That is the BMR. That is the BMR. So its first function is to regulate the basal metabolic rate, BMR. Then red blood cell formation. It also controls the metabolism of the carbohydrate, protein and fat. It influences the water electrolyte balances. And then we will also discuss about goiter and xothalmic goiter. So goiter is a hypothyroidism. Goiter also hypothyroidism. And then xothalmic goiter means hypothyroidism. So xothalmic goiter is a condition where a patient is suffering from hypothyroidism, also called Graves' disease, and it leads to the protrusion of the eyeball. Hypothyroidism during pregnancy will cause defective development and maturation, stunted growth, cretinism, mental retardation, low intellectual ability, and abnormal skin diffmutism of the fetus. So these all conditions, these all symptoms are not symptoms of mother. This is a very important point. This symptoms is a symptom of the fetus. These symptoms are the symptoms which we will observe on the fetus, not on the mother. Then thyroid gland. It releases a protein hormone, that is thyrocalcitonin, TCT. It is made up of 32 amino acids. Parathyroid hormones. It is present on the back side of the thyroid gland and 1 pair each with 2 lobes of the thyroid gland. So what it does, it enhances the calcium level, and PTH is a peptide hormone. The second page we will discuss about thymus. It helps in the development of the immune system. It secretes thymosin. What is the function of that thymosin? That is a peptide hormone. It differentiates the T lymphocytes. It produces the antibody to provide the humoral immunity. It is a lobular structure, and it is between the lungs and behind the sternum on the ventral side of the aorta. It is present behind the sternum on the ventral side of the aorta. and between the lungs. So then we will discuss about adrenal gland. It has one pair, one at the anterior part of each kidney, and two types of tissues are there. First is adrenal medulla, second is adrenal cortex. First is adrenal medulla and second one is adrenal cortex. Adrenal cortex will have three layers. That three layers is zona reticularis, inner layer, zona fasciculata, which is the middle layer, and then zona glomerulosa, that is the outer layer. The function of the zona glomerulosa is to secrete the mineralocorticoid. And then under the production of the hormone aldosterone, adrenal cortex under the production of the hormone aldosterone means कम production will cause addition disease. यानी अगर adrenal cortex से hormone का aldosterone hormone का कम production हुआ, under production हुआ, then it will cause addition disease. और अगर ये कार्बोहाइड्रेट मेटाबॉलिज्म को भी अल्टर करता है, एक्यूट वीकनेस, फैटिग, इन सारी चीज़ों को, मतलब इन सारी सिम्टम्स जो है हमें मिलेंगे इफ द पर्सन विल हैव अंडर प्रोडक्शन ऑफ एल्डोस्टेरोन. इमरजेंसी हार्मोन और हार्मोन ऑफ फ्लाइट हम किनको बोलते हैं? एड्रेनालिन को या नॉर एड्रेनालिन को, एपिनेफ्रिन को या नॉर एपिनेफ्रिन को, इनको हम बोलते हैं इमरजेंसी हार्मोन या हार्मोन ऑफ फ्लाइट. सो इनका फंक्शन क्या है? अलर्टनेस या पीलियो रिडक्शन करना. कैटेकोल्चमाइन का काम है ब्रेकडाउन ऑफ द ग्लाइकोजन एंड इंक्रीज द लेवल ऑफ द ग्लूकोज इन द ब्लड. यही इसका मेन फंक्शन है. ऑल्सो ये लिपिड प्रोटीन को भी ब्रेकडाउन करता है. एल्डोस्टेरोन का और फंक्शन है कि ये मेनली एक्ट करता है रीनल टिब्यूल्स पर एंड देन स्टिमुलेट करता है रीअब्जॉर्प्शन ऑफ द सोडियम H2O, excretion of the potassium and PO4 ion. For maintain the electrolyte body fluid volume, osmotic pressure and blood pressure also. And adrenal cortex, we have also two first one is 2 points. First is glucocorticoid and second one is mineralocorticoids. And then glucocorticoids का जो main है that is the cortisol. And cortisol का function क्या है? Cortisol का function है कि ये maintain करेगा cardiovascular system as well as the kidney, function as an anti-inflammatory reactions and suppress the immune response, stimulate the RBC production. फिर इसके बाद में इसका ग्लूकोकॉर्टिकॉइड का फंक्शन क्या होता है कि ये ग्लूकोनियोजेनेसिस को प्रमोट करता है, स्टिमुलेट करता है, लिपोलाइसिस, प्रोटियोलाइसिस, इनहिबिट सेलुलर अपटेक एंड यूटिलाइजेशन ऑफ द एमिनो एसिड्स. मिनरलोकॉर्टिकॉइड मींस एल्डोस्टेरोन इसका मेन सिक्रीशंस है एल्डोस्टेरोन एंड ये वाटर इलेक्ट्रोलाइट बैलेंस को स्टिमुलेट करेगा. साथ में ही इसका फंक्शन है रेडियल टिब्यूल पे एक्ट करना, reabsorption of sodium potassium को stimulate करना and then excretion of the potassium. Also maintain the electrolytes, the body fluid volume, osmotic pressures and blood pressure too. And then we'll discuss about pancreas, islets of Langerhans, endocrine pancreas. It has 1 to 2 millions of islets of Langerhans and then representing 1 to 2% of the pancreatic tissues also. It has two cells, alpha cells and beta cells. What is the secretions of alpha cells? Glucagon, which is a peptide hormone which will maintain the normal blood glucose level. Which is a peptide hormone and which will maintain normal blood glucose level. And beta cell produces insulin. It is also a peptide hormone. Insulin and it is also a peptide hormone. Glucagon act mainly on the liver cell, hepatocyte cells, stimulate the glucogenolysis, blood sugar level, hyperglycemia means blood sugar level increases. Reduces the cellular glucose uptake and utilizations and thus known as hyperglycemic hormone. Why hyperglycemic hormone? Because it reduces the cellular utilizations and uptake of the glucose and it stimulates the glucogenolysis where we have increment of the glucose in the blood sugar. Increment in the blood sugar level means in blood we will have more glucose because in cell it reduces the glucose uptake. So definitely it will move the glucose will move to the blood and we will have more blood sugar level. So more blood sugar level, that's why hyperglycemia, hyperglycemic hormone. Insulin, its major role is to regulate the glucose, regulation of glucose, act mainly on the hepatocyte cell and adipocyte cell. It enhances the cellular uptake and utilization of the glucose. So what was the function of Glucagon, the function of glucagon was to reduce the cellular uptake and utilization of the glucose, and hence it results into the increment of the blood sugar level. But in case of an insulin, what happens? In case of an insulin, as insulin enhances the cellular uptake and utilization of the glucose, so it will reduce the blood glucose level. So function of insulin is to reduce the blood glucose level by enhancing the cellular uptake and utilization of the glucose. So this is the blood, and we will have rapid movement of the glucose to the hepatocytes or adipocytes, means to the cell. The glucose will move to the cell, and then it will enhance the cellular uptake and utilization of the glucose. And thus, when it will move to the cell, so we will have less amount of glucose in our blood. So what is the function of the glucagon? To enhance the blood sugar level and to reduce the cellular uptake and utilization of the glucose in the cell. Cellular glucose uptake and utilization, to reduce the cellular glucose uptake and utilization. And antagonist to that is the role of the insulin. It promotes, it supports the cellular uptakes and utilization of the glucose, and hence we have balanced glucose level in our blood. Hence the glucose level of the blood decrease. Glucogenesis converted into glycogen, and this process will not occur anywhere. It cannot occur anywhere. It will occur only in the target cell. It will occur only in the target cell. Prolonged hyperglycemia, complex disorder, diabetes mellitus. So if you will have prolonged hyperglycemia, it will cause complex disorder, and that complex disorder is diabetes mellitus. It will loss of glucose through the urine. Loss of glucose through the urine will take place. Formation of the ketone bodies will also take place. Then we will discuss about testes and ovary. Testes, Leydig cells, interstitial cells बोलते हैं उनको, and present on the intertubular space produces androgen, mainly testosterone. काम क्या होता है एंड्रोजन का? कि CNS पे एक्ट करेगा and influence करेगा male sexual behavior, which is also called as libido. It will also produce anabolic synthetic effect on the protein and carbohydrate metabolism. Now we will move toward ovary. Ovarian follicle plus stromal tissue. Growing ovarian follicle will synthesize estrogen, and that estrogen will regulate female sexual behavior. Progesterone will act on the mammary gland. It will stimulate the formation of the alveoli and milk secretion. So alveoli is a sac-like structure which stores the milk, and progesterone function as a stimulate formation of the alveoli and milk secretion. So milk secretion may progesterone. Then CCK. CCK acts on both the pancreas and gallbladder. It stimulates the secretion of the pancreatic enzymes and the bile enzyme. Non-endocrine tissue secrete hormones called the growth factors. We have atrial wall of the heart, and that is ANF peptide hormone. It decreases the blood pressure when the blood pressure is increased by dilating the blood vessels. So what is the function of the ANF? What is the function of ANF? It decreases the blood pressure when the blood pressure is increased by dilating the blood vessels. By dilating the blood vessels, it decreases the blood pressure when it is increased. Kidney JJ cells produce. So in kidney we will have JJ cells, juxtaglomerular cell. That juxtaglomerular cell will produce erythropoietin hormone. That is a peptide hormone, and that erythropoietin hormone will stimulate the erythropoiesis. That means the formation of the RBC. In kidney we have juxtaglomerular cell that will produce erythropoietin peptide hormone. That hormone will stimulate the erythropoiesis. That means the formation of the RBC. Now gastrointestinal tract. Four peptide hormone secretions are there. The first one is gastrin, which will secrete gastric gland from the gastric gland, and it will stimulate the secretion of the HCl and pepsinogen. Second one is secretin, which is the exocrine pancreas, which is secreted from the exocrine pancreas. It will stimulate the secretion of the H2O, bicarbonate ion. Third one is GIP, gastroinhibitory peptide, which inhibit the gastric secretions and motility. And last one is CCK. It acts on both the pancreas and gallbladder. It stimulates the secretions of the pancreatic enzyme and bile enzyme, and non-endocrine tissue secrete hormone called the growth factor. Secondary messenger. In the last page of this chapter, we will discuss about secondary messenger. What are the secondary messengers? Cyclic AMP, IP3, JAK, CA2+. Are these secondary messengers? Hormones interact with the intercellular receptor, like the steroid hormone, iodothyronine, etc. Hormones do not give nutrition. So this is a very important point of NCERT, that what are the things that do not give us nutrition? Hormones are those things which do not give us nutrition. And we have 4 classifications of the hormones here. The first one is peptide, polypeptide, protein hormone. Second one is steroid. Third is iodothyronine, and then amino derivative. So first we'll discuss about the peptide, polypeptide, proteins hormone. Insulin, glucagon, pituitary hormone, hypothalamic hormone. So these all hormones are peptide, polypeptide, protein hormone. Insulin, glucagon, pituitary hormone, hypothalamic hormone. Insulin, glucagon, pituitary hormone, hypothalamic hormone. Steroid, steroid, cortisol, testosterone, estradiol, and progesterone. Cortisol, testosterone, estradiol, progesterone. These all hormones are steroid hormones. Iodothyronine. Thyroid hormone is iodothyronine hormone. Thyroid hormone is iodothyronine hormone. And epinephrine is an amino derivative. FSH receptor at the ovarian cell membrane. FSH will have receptor at the ovarian cell membrane. Pituitary glands located on the bony cavity called the sella turcica. And then it will divide into adenohypophysis and neurohypophysis. Adenohypophysis is again classified into 2 parts distalis and parts intermedia. Pars distalis is anterior pituitary, which will produce growth hormone, prolactin hormone, testicular stimulating hormone, LH, luteinizing hormone, and FSH, follicular stimulating hormone. And pars intermedia will produce only MSH, that is the MSH. Pars intermedia will only produce MSH. Then the second part, neurohypophysis post pituitary, it has pars nervosa, which stores and releases oxytocin and vasopressin, and this oxytocin and vasopressin are produced, actually synthesized in the hypothalamus. Excess secretion of the growth hormone in adult in the middle age will cause acromegaly, and prolactin, growth of the mammary gland, milk formation, not egestion. What is the function of prolactin? It will help in the growth of the mammary gland and the milk formation. The growth hormone is a peptide hormone. TSH will stimulate the thyroid hormone. TSH will stimulate the synthesis and secretion of the thyroid hormone. Pituitary gland is the source of the peptide or protein hormone, and inhibin produces by the ovary as well as by the Sertoli cells. ACTH stimulates the synthesis and secretion of the steroid hormones like the glucocorticoids. Thyroxine is an amine derivative hormone. Insulin-like growth factor is a complex factor involved in the growth, and glucagon act on the liver cells and stimulate the glucogenolysis. So by now we have discussed the whole chapter, chemical integration, only in 4 pages.